Hello, it's Ryan, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about Logic versus Pro Tools. Which is the better DAW? For those who don't know, DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation, which is just a fancy name for recording software. In today's video I'm going to be focusing on the two most popular DAWs on the market, which are Logic and Pro Tools, and I'm going to try and avoid claiming which one is better than the other, because although I do have my own opinion, I want to try and make this as factual as possible. In the end, the best software for you is dependent upon the kind of work that you're doing and also how serious you are in the field of music production and audio engineering. So Logic is an Apple piece of software. This means that you have to have an Apple Mac computer or a Hackintosh. Not that I'm advocating that, but you could run it on a Hackintosh, just saying. Some people would argue that this is a disadvantage because you then have to fork out a couple £1,000s for a computer. But having said that, the majority of people that work in the industry, if they're on Logic or Pro Tools or even Cubase or Studio One or any other DAW, they tend to be working on a Mac because it is the industry standard. Now, I know I'm going to annoy the PC enthusiasts when I say this, but Apple Macs are just better for dealing with audio and video, and as I said, there's a reason why they are widely used in the film and music industry. Logic is a very creative workspace, which means that it appeals to musicians and composers. It has a huge range of stock plugins for signal processing, and also a lot of VSTs, which stands for Virtual Studio Technology. This includes amp simulators, synthesizers, samplers, drum machines, basically everything you need to make sound and to make music. Pro Tools, on the other hand, is owned by Avid, so it's not an Apple piece of software, which means that it's both PC and Mac compatible. Pro Tools is considered the industry standard, the main reason being that it's just been around for the longest. So this is where it's really got the industry standard title from. The majority of professional recording studios around the world, from Abbey Road to NRG to RAK Studios, etc., they will all be using Pro Tools. That's not to say that they won't have other DAWs like Logic, etc., but the majority of the engineers and producers that work in those studios will be trained in Pro Tools because it's just become the industry standard over the years. So what are the pros and cons to both pieces of software? I don't really have many cons for Logic, and this is where my bias is coming in slightly. I suppose the only con is that you need to have an Apple computer, but again, as I've mentioned, the majority of people that are using Pro Tools or any other DAW tend to be using a Mac anyway, so that's not really a con. Pro Tools, there are quite a few negatives. First of all, Pro Tools is incredibly expensive. Logic only costs $200 and you get the full fat version. So it's just $200 off the bat and then you can go and do what you want with it. Pro Tools, on the other hand, is $2,500 and that's for the full fat version. There are three versions of Pro Tools. There's Pro Tools First, which is a free version that you can't really do much with, so I'm not going to consider that in this video. But the other two are Pro Tools and Pro Tools Ultimate. Pro Tools is about $500, maybe $600, and as I said, Pro Tools Ultimate is $2,500. And what I really don't like about Pro Tools is the fact that they limit the software. So in order to get all the features and to get the maximum out of the software and to get the most potential from it, you have to pay $2,500. I don't agree with that as a principle, and I can tell you that Pro Tools is definitely not $2,300 more of software compared to Logic. There's nothing that you can't do in Logic that you can do in Pro Tools. Another issue I have with Pro Tools is that for a software that's supposedly the industry standard, they don't set any trends. They're not innovating, they're not creating anything new. If anything, Pro Tools is lagging behind Logic, Cubase, Studio One and all the other DAWs in terms of functions and features. For example, the big update for 2020 in Pro Tools was folder stacks. We've had folder stacks in Logic and Cubase for like 10 years more, and that was the big update for 2020. This isn't really something that screams industry standard. Another example would be offline bouncing. For those that don't know what offline bouncing is, it's where you're able to bounce out your mix to a stereo track, which is what you then hand over to DistroKid and Spotify, etc. And that's the file that the consumer listens to. You can do that in offline mode, which means you can bounce out at like 5 times the speed and there's no degradation in quality. Pro Tools didn't have that feature until 2013. That's not that long ago. That meant that before 2013, if you were doing a score for a film, you had to bounce it out in real time. That's 2.5, 3 hours you have to sit there and wait for a track to export. That's just not practical or economical. Now, granted, as I said, they did introduce the feature, but 2013, that's light years behind what Logic and Cubase and all the other DAWs have been doing for decades. We've had offline bouncing for ages in Logic. In terms of positives, I think Pro Tools is really good when it comes to adding sound effects to films and movies and spot effects, because it's got a really efficient clip gain function. Now, I know you can clip gain in Logic, it's just you have to go to a region window to do it, which is just a slightly longer way of doing it, whereas in Pro Tools you can really quickly and efficiently alter the volume or the gain stage of a clip by just clicking on it and making it louder or quieter, which is a really, really cool feature. So which software is the best software for you to buy? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. As I said, if you're a composer or a musician, Logic is definitely the better DAW for you. However, if you're somebody that's serious about audio engineering and music production, and that's not to say that Logic isn't a great DAW and isn't a professional DAW, but Pro Tools is the industry standard. It is widely used in all recording studios. So if you are an audio engineer or you're somebody that's aspiring to be a professional audio engineer, then you will need to have Pro Tools skills. As a studio assistant, I have to be proficient in both Logic and Pro Tools, because there are times where I have had Pro Tools sessions come across my desk and I've got to do some editing or mix prep. It's a good skill to be proficient in more than one piece of software. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do like my content, then check out the rest of the channel. And if you really like the videos, then why not hit that subscriber button and the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.